5:12 local time. Strait of Hormuz. The surface of the water looks perfectly calm. From the flight deck of the U.S. aircraft carrier, the sea appears almost peaceful. Early morning light spreads across the narrow strait, turning the water a pale silver. Tankers move slowly along distant shipping lanes. Fighter jets sit chained to the deck. Sailors walk routine watch rotations. Nothing about the scene suggests danger, but 200 feet below the carrier, in the dark, cold layers of the Gulf, something moves. Inside the Combat Information Center, the quiet rhythm of routine operations suddenly breaks. A sonar operator freezes. On his screen, a faint acoustic signature flickers across the passive sonar feed. Not loud, not obvious. Just a slow, mechanical pulse buried inside the background noise of the ocean. He leans closer. "Possible subsurface contact," he says calmly. No alarm in his voice, no sudden movement. But everyone in the room looks up. The signal stabilizes. Bearing 147, range 19 nautical miles. The acoustic profile is weak, but the pattern is unmistakable. Diesel-electric propulsion. Submarine. The contact is moving slowly, barely 2 knots, almost drifting through the thermocline layer where warm and cold water distort sonar waves, a place submariners love to hide. The operator marks the track. Then, 5 seconds later, another tone appears. A second acoustic trace enters the system from a different direction. Bearing 161. Range 21 miles. Another submarine signature. The room gets quieter. The tactical display updates. 2 underwater contacts now move across the digital chart beneath the carrier strike group. Different bearings, different acoustic fingerprints, 2 separate submarines. For a moment, nobody speaks. Then the sonar console flashes again. A third signal rises out of the background noise, fainter than the others, but steady. Bearing 132, range 23 miles. 3 contacts. 3 submarines, all moving slowly, all moving toward the same target. The carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer studies the tactical map without changing his expression. "Track them," he says. No raised voice, no sudden orders, just quiet authority. On the bridge above, the aircraft carrier continues its steady course through the Strait of Hormuz, cutting a wide white wake through the narrow shipping corridor between Iran and Oman. The ship displaces nearly 100,000 tons. It moves like a floating city. But beneath the waterline, it has one weakness: it cannot hide. The Combat Information Center feeds the data into the strike group's network. Within seconds, every escort ship sees the same picture: destroyers, cruisers, helicopters. The entire carrier strike group now watches 3 small icons crawling slowly across the digital ocean floor. 3 submarines approaching in a loose triangular formation. The geometry is not random. Submarine commanders train for this. A 3-point attack spreads torpedoes across multiple angles, making it harder for a large surface ship to evade. The pattern forms slowly, but unmistakably. 3 silent hunters moving into position. 5:17. 200 miles away, high above the Persian Gulf, a maritime patrol aircraft banks slightly east. A P-8 Poseidon. The aircraft carries one of the most advanced anti-submarine systems ever deployed. Inside its mission bay, technicians begin launching sonobuoys into the sea below. Small cylinders splash into the water and deploy underwater microphones. Passive buoys, active buoys. Within minutes, they create a listening grid stretching across 60 square miles of ocean. Each buoy listens, each buoy reports. And suddenly, one of them detects something, a faint propeller rhythm moving beneath the thermal layer. The signal travels instantly through satellite link back to the carrier strike group. Confirmation, submarine contact. Then another buoy triggers. Second confirmation. Moments later, a third buoy lights up the network. 3 separate underwater signatures. The tactical display aboard the carrier updates again. 3 red tracks now move steadily closer. Range shrinking. 19 miles. 17. 16. Inside the Combat Information Center, the sonar operator adjusts his headset and watches the acoustic waveforms climb slowly across the screen. The sound is clearer now. Low-frequency propulsion. Iranian diesel-electric class. No doubt anymore. These submarines are not passing through. They are closing. At this speed, it will take less than 40 minutes to enter torpedo range. No alarms sound. No sirens echo through the carrier. But every station inside the strike group knows exactly what this means. 3 submarines, 1 carrier, and the silent phase of the hunt has just begun. 5:29. The Strait of Hormuz is beginning to wake up. Cargo ships push slowly through the narrow shipping lanes. Oil tankers glide across the horizon. The morning sun climbs higher above the Persian Gulf, casting long reflections across the water. From the outside, the U.S. carrier strike group looks exactly as it should. A massive aircraft carrier cutting through the sea at steady speed. 2 guided missile destroyers moving several miles ahead. Another escort trailing slightly behind. Helicopters parked quietly on the flight deck. Routine, professional, predictable. But beneath the surface, the ocean is becoming crowded. Inside the Combat Information Center, the sonar picture grows sharper with every passing minute. The 3 submarine contacts have not changed course. They are still closing. Slow, careful, methodical, speed 2 knots. At that speed, a submarine barely disturbs the surrounding water. The acoustic signature is little more than a whisper, but whispers travel far underwater. And the strike group's sensors are now listening carefully. The sonar operator tracks the first contact. Range 14 nautical miles. The submarine remains deep beneath the thermocline layer, where temperature differences bend sonar waves and create pockets of acoustic shadow. A perfect hiding place. But hiding places are never perfect forever. Another update appears on the tactical display. The second submarine contact adjusts its bearing slightly, just a few degrees, small enough that most civilian vessels would never notice. But inside the carrier's tactical system, the geometry becomes obvious. The 3 submarines are spreading apart, forming a wider triangle. The watch officer studies the pattern. He doesn't need to say it out loud. Everyone in the room already understands. They are maneuvering into attack positions. A carrier strike group is one of the most heavily defended formations on Earth. Surface radar, air patrols, electronic warfare. But torpedoes are different. They come from below. And below the surface, the rules change. 5:31. One of the escorting destroyers activates its hull-mounted sonar. A sharp metallic pulse explodes outward into the ocean. Ping! The sound travels through the water like a shockwave. Inside the Combat Information Center, the acoustic display fills with reflections as the sonar pulse bounces across the seabed and back. Ping! Another pulse. Ping! Every submarine in the area hears it instantly. To submariners, the sound is unmistakable. They have been detected. Inside one of the Iranian submarines, the captain listens to the echo through his headset. American active sonar. He knows exactly what that means. The carrier group is searching, but he also knows something else. They are already close. Very close. He checks the range again, 9 nautical miles. Inside the submarine, the crew moves quietly through the narrow control room. No shouting, no rushing, just careful preparation, because this moment is exactly what they trained for. Back above the surface, the carrier strike group begins to shift its posture. The destroyers spread slightly wider. Not enough to alarm civilian ships nearby. Just enough to tighten the defensive screen around the carrier. On the flight deck, a helicopter crew runs toward a waiting MH-60R Seahawk. The aircraft is already fueled, already armed. The Seahawk is one of the Navy's primary submarine hunters. Under its belly sits a dipping sonar system capable of scanning deep beneath the ocean's surface. Its weapon pylons carry lightweight torpedoes designed specifically to chase submarines. Within minutes, the helicopter lifts off the deck. Its rotor wash scatters spray across the carrier's wake as it accelerates forward. Inside the Seahawk cockpit, the sensor operator watches the digital ocean map update in real time. 3 submarine contacts. Closing. Range 8 miles now. That distance matters, because heavyweight torpedoes can travel more than 20 miles. But at close range, they become far more dangerous. Less time to react, less room to escape. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical officer studies the numbers. 8 miles. 7. The submarines continue forward at the same slow speed. No sudden maneuvers. No panic. Just silent approach. That calm tells its own story. These crews are not wandering into the strike group by accident. They know exactly where they are going. 5:36. The Seahawk helicopter reaches the outer edge of the sonar grid. Below it, the sea stretches dark and empty. But the sensors say otherwise. The helicopter slows to a hover. The dipping sonar begins lowering into the water beneath the aircraft. A long cable disappears beneath the waves. The sonar head enters the ocean, and instantly the system begins listening. A faint mechanical rhythm emerges through the speakers. Propeller blades. Slow rotation. Heavy steel hull moving through deep water. Submarine confirmed. The sensor operator marks the contact. One of the 3. But the other 2 are still out there. Still closing. Inside the Combat Information Center, the range indicator drops again. 6 nautical miles. At that distance, every officer in the room knows the reality. They are now entering torpedo engagement range. And somewhere beneath the dark water of the Strait of Hormuz, 3 Iranian submarines are almost ready to fire. 5:41. Inside the Combat Information Center, the atmosphere changes in an instant. A sharp acoustic spike flashes across the sonar console. The operator leans forward. For a fraction of a second, the sound is barely distinguishable from background noise. Then it becomes unmistakable. A high-frequency cavitation signature. Propeller blades spinning far faster than before. Not a submarine. Something smaller. Something accelerating rapidly through the water. The operator doesn't hesitate. "Torpedo in the water!" The words cut through the room. Every head turns toward the tactical display. A new contact appears. Speed, 50 knots. Bearing, directly toward the carrier. The computer calculates the track instantly. Heavyweight torpedo. Then it happens again. Another acoustic burst. A second torpedo launch, and seconds later, a third. 3 separate propulsion signatures ignite beneath the ocean. 3 torpedoes racing forward at combat speed. 3 underwater weapons now converging on the same target, the aircraft carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical computer begins projecting intercept lines. 3 red tracks surge across the digital map. Time to impact appears beside them. 6 minutes. The watch officer doesn't raise his voice. Carrier maneuvering. Up on the bridge, the order reaches the helm instantly. The massive ship begins to turn. A nuclear-powered carrier weighs nearly 100,000 tons. It cannot move like a destroyer, but even a slow change in heading can disrupt a torpedo's attack solution. The rudder shifts. The bow begins a gradual swing to starboard. Below the waterline, the carrier's wake changes direction. Even a few degrees can matter. Back in the Combat Information Center, the torpedo tracks continue closing. 5 minutes to impact. Meanwhile, above the ocean's surface, the MH-60R Seahawk helicopter is already responding. The sensor operator hears the launch signatures through the dipping sonar. 3 distinct propulsion noises. 3 torpedoes. He marks the vectors quickly. But something else appears on the screen. A larger acoustic signature moving slowly below the launch point. Submarine. One of the attackers. The helicopter banks sharply toward the contact. Altitude drops. The pilot steadies the aircraft as the sonar operator locks onto the submarine's location. Target confirmed. No hesitation now. The Seahawk releases a Mark 54 lightweight torpedo. The weapon drops from the helicopter and disappears into the sea below. Moments later, its motor ignites. The torpedo begins its own underwater hunt. Back inside the carrier strike group, the defensive response continues. 4 minutes to impact. The tactical officer gives the next command, deploy Nixie. Along the stern of the carrier, a cable unspools rapidly into the water. At the end of the line, a small device begins broadcasting powerful acoustic noise. The Nixie torpedo decoy. To a torpedo's sonar seeker, the decoy sounds larger than the carrier itself. Louder, closer, more attractive. It drags behind the ship like a moving target, designed to pull the weapon away. Another decoy deploys moments later. 2 acoustic ghosts now trail behind the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical display updates. The first torpedo reacts almost immediately. Its track begins to curve. The seeker head locks onto the decoy signal. The weapon turns away from the carrier and accelerates toward the artificial noise. One threat diverted. But the other 2 torpedoes hold their course. Their guidance systems remain fixed on the original target. 3 minutes to impact. The carrier continues its evasive maneuver. The massive hull cuts a wider arc through the Strait of Hormuz. Behind it, the decoys trail through the wake like bait. Above the ocean, the Seahawk's torpedo closes on the submarine contact. The weapon switches to active sonar. Ping, ping. Each pulse echoes through the water, searching for the steel hull below. Inside the Iranian submarine, the crew hears it instantly. The sound of a hunter, a torpedo, closing fast. The submarine begins an emergency descent. Ballast tanks flood. The vessel angles downward, attempting to slip beneath the sonar cone. But the Mark 54 is already tracking. Its onboard computer processes every echo, adjusting, closing. Back inside the Combat Information Center, the tension builds. 2 torpedoes remain. Range now less than 2 miles. Time to impact, under 2 minutes. Every screen in the room displays the same picture. 2 incoming weapons, 1 aircraft carrier, and barely enough time left for the ocean to decide which one survives. 5:47. The ocean beneath the Strait of Hormuz erupts in silent violence. Nearly 200 feet below the surface, the Mk-54 torpedo released from the Seahawk helicopter locks onto its target. Active sonar pulses cut through the dark water. Ping, ping. Each pulse returns a clearer echo. A steel hull, a diesel-electric submarine attempting to dive deeper into the acoustic shadows below. Inside the Iranian submarine, the sound is unmistakable. Torpedo, closing fast. The captain reacts immediately. Emergency dive. Ballast tanks flood. The submarine tilts sharply downward, descending toward deeper water. The crew begins releasing acoustic countermeasures, small devices designed to mimic the sound of the submarine's propeller and confuse the incoming weapon. Tiny bursts of noise spread through the water. But the Mark 54 was built for exactly this situation. Its onboard processor filters the echoes. False signals are discarded. The real target remains. Distance closing. 200 meters. 100. Then, a sudden underwater explosion tears through the silence. The shockwave spreads outward in a violent sphere of pressure. On the Seahawk's sensors, the submarine's acoustic signature vanishes instantly. No more propeller rhythm, no more hull noise, just turbulence. One submarine removed from the battle, but the fight is far from over. Back on the surface, the aircraft carrier continues its evasive turn. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical display updates. 2 torpedoes remain, both still racing toward the carrier. Range 1 mile. Time to impact, less than 90 seconds. The ship's stern cuts sharply through the water as the helmsman pushes the maneuver to its limit. Behind the carrier, the Nixie decoys drag through the wake, broadcasting powerful acoustic signatures. The first torpedo has already taken the bait. On the tactical screen, its track curves away, chasing the artificial noise behind the ship. But the second torpedo continues straight. Its seeker has not switched targets. It is still locked onto the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, nobody speaks. The numbers change every second. 800 meters, 700, 600. At the same moment, another Seahawk helicopter sweeps low across the ocean surface. This aircraft has been tracking the second submarine contact detected earlier. Its sensors confirm the target. Another Iranian submarine attempting to slip away beneath the confusion. The helicopter pilot banks hard left and drops altitude. Target acquired! Within seconds, a second Mark 54 torpedo falls from the Seahawk's weapon rack and disappears beneath the waves. The weapon ignites and begins its underwater pursuit. Below the surface, the submarine commander hears the sonar pulse. Ping! He knows what it means. Another torpedo is hunting. The submarine turns sharply, trying to change depth and direction at the same time. But underwater maneuvering takes time, and torpedoes are built for speed. The Mark 54 accelerates through the dark water. Its sonar cone sweeps the ocean ahead. Then the echo returns. Steel hull, target locked. The distance closes rapidly, and seconds later, a second explosion shatters the water beneath the strait. The blast sends a plume of bubbles racing toward the surface. On the Seahawk's sensors, The submarine signature disappears. 2 submarines, 2 detonations, both gone. But inside the Combat Information Center, the focus remains fixed on the last remaining threat. The final torpedo. Range 500 meters. The carrier continues turning. Its engines drive the enormous hull forward as the decoys trail behind like lifelines. 400 meters, 300, 200. At that distance, the outcome will be decided in seconds. Every screen in the Combat Information Center shows the same moving symbol. 1 incoming torpedo, closing fast. The Strait of Hormuz has become a race between steel and sound, and somewhere beneath the surface, the final weapon is still hunting. 5:52. The final torpedo is now less than 200 meters from the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, every screen tracks the same contact. A single acoustic signature racing through the water at nearly 50 knots, closing fast. The carrier continues its evasive turn, but a ship this size cannot outrun a torpedo. Its only defense now is deception. Behind the ship, the Nixie decoys trail through the turbulent wake. 2 artificial acoustic targets broadcasting powerful signals into the water, each one louder than the carrier itself. Each one designed to lure the weapon away at the last possible moment. On the tactical display, the torpedo's track remains steady, bearing unchanged, still aimed directly at the ship. Range 150 meters. Inside the Combat Information Center, no one speaks. The sonar operator watches the acoustic waveform climb higher. The torpedo's propulsion signature is clear now. Aggressive, locked, 100 meters. Then suddenly, the track shifts. Just a few degrees at first. The torpedo's seeker begins to drift toward the louder acoustic signal behind the carrier. The decoy. On the tactical display, the red track curves slowly away from the ship's hull. The weapon is changing targets. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer keeps his eyes on the screen. Still no celebration. Still no relief. Because torpedoes can reacquire their targets. Range 70 meters from the decoy, then 60, 50. The torpedo accelerates, its seeker head now fully locked on the artificial acoustic signature trailing behind the carrier. Seconds later, the ocean detonates. A violent underwater explosion erupts in the carrier's wake. A towering column of water blasts upward into the morning air. Shock waves ripple across the surface. But the carrier itself continues forward, unaffected. The decoy absorbed the strike exactly as designed. Inside the Combat Information Center, the incoming track disappears from the display. The final torpedo is gone. But the battle beneath the Strait of Hormuz is not finished yet, because one contact remains. The 3rd submarine. While the torpedoes were closing on the carrier, that submarine attempted to break contact. Its acoustic signature shifted course several minutes earlier, turning north beneath the confusion of explosions and sonar pings. But the strike group's sensors never lost it. High above the water, the first Seahawk helicopter banks sharply toward the updated coordinates. The crew already knows what must happen next. The dipping sonar lowers once again into the sea. Within seconds, the system detects the target. A slow-moving submarine attempting to escape at low speed. The helicopter pilot steadies the aircraft. Contact confirmed. The weapon release switch is armed. Another Mark 54 torpedo drops from the Seahawk and vanishes into the ocean below. Moments later, its motor ignites. The torpedo begins its search pattern. Below the surface, the submarine crew hears the sonar pulses immediately. Ping! Ping! Each echo grows louder. The submarine attempts one final maneuver, diving deeper while releasing acoustic countermeasures. But the Mark 54 has already locked onto the hull. The weapon accelerates. Closing, closing. Then, the third explosion. A violent pressure wave tears through the water beneath the strait. Moments later, the submarine's acoustic signature vanishes from the sonar display. Inside the Seahawk cockpit, the sensor operator confirms the result. Contact lost. Catastrophic detonation. Back aboard the carrier, the Combat Information Center updates the tactical map. 3 submarine tracks, all gone. 3 explosions recorded beneath the surface. The Strait of Hormuz returns to silence. 5:59. The carrier strike group resumes its original formation. Destroyers tighten the defensive screen. Helicopters circle above the water, scanning for any remaining contacts. But the ocean beneath them is quiet again. No propellers, no torpedoes, no submarines. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer enters a final line into the operational log. 3 hostile submarines engaged, all threats neutralized. The aircraft carrier continues its course through the narrow waters of the strait. From the flight deck above, the sea once again appears calm. Cargo ships continue their slow transit. The horizon remains clear. Nothing in the morning light reveals the violent battle that just unfolded beneath the surface. But everyone inside the strike group knows exactly what happened here. 3 submarines approached, 3 torpedoes were fired, and in less than 40 minutes, the hunt beneath the Strait of Hormuz was over.